A warm welcome back to the channel. Today there is coverage on your Airbus A350F, which is garnering some interest from an airline. Meanwhile, developments over at Atlas Air as they continue to grow their fleet. There's focus on Air Transat and an upcoming strike, and AirAsia expansion news. But beginning off the bat with Cathay Pacific, who are closing in on selecting Airbus's very own upcoming A350 freighter for their own future freight needs. This is per an exclusive report from Reuters. A deal could be worth around 6 total units for a plane that you may know is yet to be certified. It is also an aircraft that Airbus announced with the intent to really compete against Boeing in a sector better. While there have been many concerns about demand for air freight, Cathay believes it is still vitally important to the company. And for the European plane maker, well, adding the A350F to their portfolio is in the hope of increasing their own competitiveness in the air freight market, which is something you could argue they've struggled to succeed in for some time. Interestingly, in March 2023, Reuters reported that Cathay Pacific was closing in on a deal with Boeing and their newly launched 777-8F. At the time, the expectation was that Boeing would lead the way in securing a deal Cathay says would replace its Boeing 747s. And naturally, if it had struck a deal with Boeing, it would have ensured that the company stayed with the American plane maker for its freighter needs. However, after reviewing the offerings and taking some time, per the latest reports, Airbus is now leading the way for a contract that would see the Cathay Group make that all-important switch. Airbus and Boeing will lock horns across the coming decades with their newly announced next-generation freighter offerings, and these are the offerings that have now been released. No doubt as the years do progress, there'll be wiggle room to introduce new freighter aircraft to capture as much demand as possible. Notably, the first to release of this next generation, though, will be the A350F, announced not too long ago to compete with Boeing. Awaiting further clarity from the certification of passenger variants is the 777-8F, which will be the 350F's direct competitor. On almost every occasion, these two variants will be put forward to interested parties in the hopes, at least for Airbus, of a more competitive landscape. While similar aircraft at the end of the day, each of them do offer their customers something different, from the available range to the payload. Additionally, what deals customers can get on the said planes will play a part too on the end destination. Cathay Pacific Cargoes, or now more streamlined to just Cathay Cargo, operates exclusively with 747 freighters. Now, they do fly 747-400Fs, but also they have 14 active units from the 747-8 freighter family at their disposal. The goal with the 6 A350Fs that have been proposed in the deal would be to replace the aging -400Fs. Over to AirAsia, and they've announced a substantial increase in flights between China, India and Malaysia in 2024. As part of the latest expansion efforts from Malaysia, the airline will see a particular focus on India and China, where 230 weekly flights will begin in the first quarter of 2024. As a result, the group says there'll be a staggering 5.2 million seats per year, offered in a significant increase in capacity. The expansion plans will be made possible thanks to AirAsia Malaysia and AirAsia ex-Malaysia. The broader mission is to really serve more destinations as they see surging demand in the area. It also follows a move by the Malaysian government to announce 30-day visa-free entry for all travellers from China and India, with the commencement of this on the 1st of December 2023. AirAsia Malaysia and the AirAsia ex-Malaysia already operates 17 routes into China, which equates to some 156 weekly flights. The group operates to key cities such as Beijing, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Chengdu, among others. And therefore, 2024 will be a very important year for the company. Aircraft orders are continuing, with Atlas Air announcing a new deal for 2 additional Boeing 777 freighters. The addition of 2 new 777 freighters from Boeing comes as a means to address the ongoing strong customer demand for larger air freight capacity. Atlas Air also highlights the continued growth of cross-border e-commerce shipping as a defining factor as to why such a commitment has been required. The 2 additional 777 freighters are expected to be delivered towards the second half of 2024. A deal also increases Atlas Air's commitment to this type. which has proved to be hugely reliable for them. Atlas Air says the 777F delivers fantastic reliability levels and reduced emissions, resulting in a smaller noise footprint per executives. While there have been many question marks over the long-term rapid growth of the air freight market, Atlas says all its decisions regarding expansion are measured. The anticipation is they'll see solid earnings and cash flow from this latest transaction with the American plane maker. Additionally, there's a belief they'll be able to generate significant value to their customers. For a freighter solution, the 777F can actually be a pretty ideal pickup even today, almost in 2024, especially for a company that is facing, say, increasing levels of demand. Next generation freighters from Airbus and Boeing, as touched on in the first story today, are still being worked on, and their first deliveries will likely occur later on this decade. So for companies that need an immediate solution, well, these next generation freighters aren't really what they need now. However, acquiring 777Fs can see deliveries take place far sooner, and therefore, in the case of Atlas Air, be a speedy solution to the growing air freight market that they are witnessing, and the need for these larger aircraft. Atlas Air operates a pretty diverse fleet with 85 in-service aircraft and 4 in storage. This is per your latest fleet data. One type it really does rely on is the 747 series. It has 43 747-400Fs alongside 8 747-8Fs, which are all hugely important. Atlas Air actually also acquired the final 747 produced by Boeing at the beginning of this year following a massive ceremony. And to the final story of today, over 2,000 flight attendants with Air Transat have voted in favour of a strike mandate, which would significantly impact travellers and the airline if moved ahead with. The Canadian Union of Public Employees, representing Air Transat employees, says 2,100 flight attendants would be included, and such a vote follows a general meeting that saw almost 100% vote in favour of this. The tally stood at 99.8%. The union highlights that a strike could become legal at the beginning of 2024 and have catastrophic effects on the airline operations. However, Air Transat will work diligently to find a solution and agree to avoid walking off the job and cancelling their entire operations. Something that is easier said than done. Many would argue that this long-standing process has reached its tipping point, which is why strike action is being pursued. Following the effects of the global pandemic, we saw most companies slash their employee base, but then demand surged back. As a result, those who retained their jobs often worked the jobs of multiple people, working overtime and in an incredibly stressful environment. Additionally, with the ever-collapsing supply chains and issues that most airlines were experiencing, working conditions were at an all-time low. While Air Transat employees seek better wages and conditions, they only represent a small group of a much larger one that feels the same at their own respective industries. Thus far, some employee bases have successfully agreed with their employers for better pay and conditions. However, others, like those flight attendants at Air Transat, are still searching for a deal. Staggeringly, it was revealed that more than 50% of the attendants have been forced to take a second or even third job to continue paying the bills. That is going to conclude today's aviation news recap. Apologies for one not going live tomorrow. Apologies for one not going live yesterday. Just been feeling a little bit under the weather, but don't worry, I'll do my best to have another update for you tomorrow at the exact same time and same place.
And we'll fly.